last time. So we're going to continue where we finished last time, where basically what I did last time was I set up what the trianistic model is, what it is, what it does, and then what it appears as. And so all we know is the as. Everything that we see is the as. What we don't see is what it is and what it does. And that's basically what the purpose of this book is. So now I'll continue from where we left off. So if the first aspect of reality is what it is, which we have established to be simply aware space, the second aspect of reality would be what it does, which is necessarily established as being actively aware or attracted to the only thing that is, which is itself. And the third aspect of reality would necessarily be the result of this contracting or the folding of aware space, which is duality, or the appearance of there being a you and the other. And that's why, and so once again, I go back to the famous picture of this. So all you have is what it is, which is the aware space, what it does, which is it bends, and as a result of the bending, boom, you get the appearance of you in the world, you and the world. All right, and so that folding, that bending, that's what I call the original contraction. The original contraction is what started everything. So we didn't have appearances, there's no world, there's no objects, there's no form, there's nothing to speak of until that original contraction, that original fold of awareness folding up on itself from its attraction to itself. All right, so I say it is that original contraction of awareness that created duality, and as a consequence, that original contraction naturally and unavoidably continues to mirror itself on every level within the very dualistic world that it created. And what I mean by that is the world that we see, the world that we observe, the world that science tells us about, it has no choice but to mirror the original dynamic, which is the inseparability of aware space. And what I mean by that is just like if a mother and a father come together and have a baby, the baby is going to have no choice but to take on the characteristics of the mother and child. It's going to be nothing else but the mother and child. All right. Oh, and then I say, it's funny because then I go on to say that sentence is so vital to understanding the true nature of our entire existence. So it's worth repeating. So I'll repeat it. So it is the original contraction, that original contraction of awareness that created duality. And as a consequence, that original contraction naturally and unavoidably continues to mirror itself on every level within the very dualistic world that it created. So once again, it's basically saying every single thing in this world is going to mirror the original dynamic. And we're going to see that. And that's what we're going to get into. I'll go into it a little bit now. I say we could see it literally everywhere when we look close enough. It is seen in every aspect of nature what I'm doing is I'm looking at the very basics of life. I'm looking at the heartbeat, I'm looking at the brain, I'm looking at the cycle of day and night. I'm looking at all the things that we just define, the very fundamental basics of life, birth, creation, very, very fundamental aspects. And as I noticed, it is seen in every aspect of nature, from the contraction and expansion of each heartbeat to the cycle of day and night. We experience the cycles that vary from winter and summer seasons of the year to incarnate and discarnate phases of life. But it is not only the cyclic nature of existence that mirrors itself in the dualistic world. One of the many aspects of the original contraction that you will also see mirrored in the emergent dualistic world is the very dynamic that is responsible for this cyclic nature of reality. And that is the magnetic attraction that caused the original contraction in the first place. That's all we see. If you look around, that's all we see is magnetic attraction, whether we're talking about gravity, whether we're talking about cells. Actually, I probably say all this stuff, so let me just read it. I'm probably gonna just say spontaneously what I was about to read anyway. So let me say this, and if I leave anything out, I'll bring it in. All right. All right, and that is the magnetic attraction that caused the original contraction in the first place. And the magnetic attraction that made creation inevitable also mirrors itself on a reproductive level, whether we are talking about the binding of cells coming in together from attraction, the colonization of organisms, plants reaching for the light, fertilizer finding the egg, or just a guy checking out a girl's body. I can go on and on about this for hours, and I intend to get it out all on paper, but I want to end this thought with a few implications that necessarily follow from this perspective. The first and foremost important being that this is actually it, what you're looking at. If you're looking for heaven, then look no further. Just like the appearance of a rainbow does not take away from the fact that the rainbow is actually clear white light. The appearance of things does not take away from the fact that right now you're staring right into the abyss, the void, the unmanifest. And at this very moment, you are mistaking this abyss to be these words you are reading right now. Or maybe not. Perhaps you are aware that the scene that you are taking right now is indeed actually the very abyss from which all the manifestations arise. Another important implication is that the moment of creation is actually and always right now. This is the original moment. Furthermore, manifestation will never end. Any apparent end only gives way to a new beginning, which gives way to another end, etc., ever evolving. Also, every part of our evolutionary past is still with us in some form. The last insight I will share with you on this topic is the reason that I'm writing this in the first place. If I had to simplify my point about the trianistic perspective, then I would say that the mathematical formula of the life, the universe, and everything is 1 divided by 1 equals 3. And what I mean by that is the 1, and we could use my example, yeah, well, here we go, we'll use this, of the 1 folding on itself, and then this is the 1 folding on itself resulting, so the 1 is the first thing, folding on itself is the middle thing, and then the third is the emergent manifestation. So the third emerges from the inseparability of the 1 and itself as the other due to the folding or division. So basically, due to the folding, due to the contraction, the 1 appears as 3, what it is, what it does, and what it appears as. Due to its folding or its self-division. And I know that this likely does not seem to make sense yet, which is why I put it in a way that you could actually visualize this point. And before I get to that, it's probably been 10 minutes. I feel like it's been a while. Before I get to an actually really good example of that, does anybody got any questions about what I said so far? Good. That was the hard part. Good. Okay. Then the example I'm about to give, though, is actually the cover of the book. All right. So basically, let me just first show the cover of the book. What the cover of the book is basically what the trianistic model is, what it is, and basically this stick is a metaphor for awareness, but also you could use this stick as a metaphor for anything that would be a triune. But awareness is the original triune. That's what everything is based on, is the original triune. But in life, we could use anything as the stick, but we're using as awareness. So awareness is the stick. That's what it is. That's its essence. And what's its nature? What it does is it's active and it's attracted to itself. And when it attracts itself, it's going to fold and meet itself. And that would be, for a stick, that would be the rubbing, the agitating, the movement. So the stick moving upon itself is going to spontaneously, and what's the word here? Emerges as the fire. So basically, the fire is always the potential within the stick. And the inseparability of the essence and the nature of what it is spontaneously manifest as the fire. And basically what I try to do with this picture there is kind of obscure the stick, just like the waves obscure the water. Because basically the inseparability of what it is and what it does, bam, spontaneously appears as the emerged, as the third. So all we see is the fire. We don't see what it actually is, which is the stick and the rubbing. All we're seeing in the world is the fire. So when everyone's saying that the whole world's an illusion, nothing exists, basically what they're saying is the fire is just an appearance of what's actually happening, which is just awareness, being aware of itself, just that basic self-attraction. All right, so now I'm going to explain that. So let's examine the trianistic dynamic by imagining a single wooden stick bending over to rub against itself until the fire spontaneously emerges from the potential within. The first aspect of the triune in this particular metaphor is the stick itself, which represents pure potential, not actual existence yet, just pure potential. That's what people are talking about when they're talking about the Dharmakaya or the ineffable, the unseen, the emptiness. That's what they're talking about, just pure potential. The second aspect of the rubbing of the stick, which represents the activity or the process that transforms the potential into actuality. Or in Dzogchen, they'd say the base into the fruit. All right. So in this particular example, the base is represented by the stick and the fruit is represented by the resultant fire. Moreover, the third aspect is represented by the emergence of the fire that was created from its own process, which in this case, the process was the bending over to rub against itself. Kind of like if you rub a male against a female, a third person emerges out of pure potentiality. But I would like to elaborate more on the stick rubbing itself to transform itself into a fire. This is a good place to start with specific examples of a trianistic model of understanding, because we start with just one simple item, a singular twig. And the reason we do this is because we're just trying to start with nothing. Just, all the mystics have told you all there is one. And as I said, what this whole thing for me was about is everyone says the one is the many, but no one explained the how. And so that's what I was excited about. This explains the actual how. How does the one manifest as the many? What specifically is the relationship between God and the individual, or mind and matter? All right, so let's go back. All right, so in this example, the twig itself would obviously be the base, as this is what it is. The attraction to itself and the consequential folding over and rubbing itself would be the twig's path, or the doing. And the emergent fire would be what the twig transforms into or manifests as. So all along, the twig was ripe with the potential of being fire, but it was only the folding or the path of that twig that transformed the potential into actualized emergence. This is the very dynamic that mirrors the very original dynamic that is responsible for all of reality. That has or could ever be. The original dynamic that I just outlined above is simply a metaphor for aware space contracting in on itself due to the magnetic attraction to itself, resulting in awareness of awareness, the original duality. And that's the only duality, because everything that you're aware of that you take to be another, it's actually just awareness. Just like if you're looking at a rainbow, every color that you think you see is actually just white light. And actually, as I was reading that, I thought of another reason how this is tangible. Because like I said, what I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to bring this to your everyday part of life, your everyday existence. Because I know it sounds like it's not relevant to your everyday existence, but I just saw, as I was reading that paragraph, another example of how this is relative to your everyday existence. Let me go back and think about what that was. Yes, exactly. Our suffering. That's exactly it. So when I was talking about the twig was ripe with the potential, but it was only the folding or the path. It was the rubbing of it. The rubbing of it automatically reminded me of the agitating. If you look at nature, there's always going to be an agitation. Let's say how the seed has to be agitated. The water agitates the seed to unleash the husk so the plant could actually come out. Or the labor pains. Everything in life that's given birth is always going to have a type of agitation. And so when people are talking about enlightenment, what you're actually talking about is a death/birth, because death and birth are identical, just depending upon what side of the door you're looking on. You think it's your death, and that's why you call it the void. That's why you call it emptiness. And that's why it's the scariest thing in the world. It feels like what I call the suicide mission. But on that door on the other side is birth. So it's birth, death, death, birth, simultaneous. Oh, hold on, I'm getting something. I hope there's not, someone might be having a problem. Hold on one second. Let me see what that is. All right, I can't figure it out. So anyway, I don't want to get too distracted. I think other people are having a hard time getting in, but I don't want to get too distracted. They could watch it on YouTube. Yes, but so that's what I want to say. That's how I want to bring it back down to earth, or suffering. Just recently, somebody was describing how the Buddha said that all there is purification and bliss. And purification is your suffering. So everything that you think you're suffering, it's actually the purification aspect. And if we want to bring that down to earth, you could think about that, how it's apparent in our everyday life. If you get hurt, you put the alcohol or the hydrogen peroxide on the wound and it burns. That's how you know it's working. That's how you know it's healing. That's how you know it's purifying. You know it's purifying it because of the burning. Same thing with, working out. As they say, no pain, no gain. It's the burning, it's the suffering that's actually the purifying. So once again, now we can see how this is relevant to our own lives. It's not just conceptual, it's our everyday experience. Every day you're experiencing this potential, this agitation, basically taking you from unconscious awareness to conscious awareness. Because before everything is nothing, before everything is just pure unconsciousness. And by us going, so just picture this in your daily life. You're going through your life mindlessly. You're not aware, you're just going through life just bored and not really aware of the beauty of your mind. It's only because a suffering, because of a hardship, because of an agitation, that's going to draw you back to the backdrop of what you actually are. Now you're going to experience bliss. Now you're going to experience conscious awareness. Whereas a moment before, you weren't experiencing conscious awareness. You're just going through life mindlessly, not even aware of the immense awareness that you're experiencing, unaware of the awareness that you're mindless of the awareness that you're experiencing, until something comes along that's agitating or suffering or something. And because of that is distasteful, that points us back to what we are. Boom, now we're resting in peace. So now we've evolved. We went from unconscious awareness to conscious awareness to actualized awareness. All right, so again, I just saw that as one way we could see how this applies to our everyday life. Okay, and let me see. Okay, all right. Mhm. All right, so now we're going to go on to the next part. Oh yeah, this is a cool part. All right. So going back to the Trinity perspective, I want to make clear what I mean by this is it. By what anyone means when they say this is it. We have the three aspects of reality. The first aspect is the base or the source, which is the undifferentiated aware space. The second aspect is the path or the function, which is active awareness or its movement, or what I call the folding or contracting. The third aspect is the fruit or the result of awareness being attracted to itself. And that result is the original sense of duality or consciousness. It's what I call the virgin birth, what the Christians probably meant about the virgin birth, originating self-arising consciousness from nothing. The result of awareness being attracted to itself, and that result is the original sense of duality or consciousness of something rather than undifferentiated awareness. So that's what the Buddhists describe as our original ignorance. They call that avidya, taking what you're looking at to be something other than what you are. And then that's probably assumed what the Christians are talking about when they're saying you're born into original sin. I imagine it's the same thing. Speaking about Christianity, I get to that in a second. All right. My point is that the third aspect of reality, which is the manifest world, is all we know. Everyone wants to get to know or get to experience the first aspect of reality, what they think of as God or the Brahman or the Dharmakaya, the unmanifest. But what they don't realize is that the only factor that ensures that the first aspect, God or the unmanifest, does indeed appear as the third aspect, which is the manifest world, is the second aspect of reality. The second aspect of reality is the inevitable contraction or the folding of awareness caused by the inherent power of attraction to itself. Therefore, when I say that this is it, I am just saying that the manifest world is actually a misperception of the unmanifest itself. Just like the rainbow is a misperception of the light itself. All right, in an attempt to explain this to a Christian friend, I once grabbed a piece of paper. So I'll do that now. So in an attempt to explain this concept to a Christian friend, I once grabbed a piece of paper to him and I said, think of this piece of paper as God. All right. Not being familiar with Christianity myself, I described how I saw their mystery of the Trinity to fit in quite neatly with the triunistic perspective. The paper itself correlates to the Father aspect of the Christian Trinity. So this would be the Father, just the paper itself. This would be the base. This would be what it is. Then I folded, now let me put my laptop on this so I can do that. Sorry. Then I folded the paper in half, creating a crease. So I'll do that now. So then I folded the paper in half, creating a crease. And I said, the crease is the sun, the path, or what the base does is the crease. Finally, I held up the resultant folded up piece of paper, which gives the appearance of two, and said, this is the Holy Ghost, or the fruit, or its creation, which is duality, the appearance of two, where there's actually only one. For me, the Holy Ghost fits the bill perfectly for the dualistic world of appearances, Or to put it more simply, you could think of the Holy Ghost as an illusion in the sense of Maya or samsara, which is caused by the fold or the sun. Of course, when I hear sun, I hear man, or even more broadly, individuality. Could be a leaf, could be a tree, could be a star, could be a molecule, could be anything. Since the sun or the individuality is only the crease in the paper and not the paper itself, the individual can spend their whole life looking for an actual self, but there is nothing actually there beyond a simple crease or an indentation. That's why I call the path, the spiritual path, a suicide mission, because done correctly, you are setting out to flatten the crease, which is you. You're ending you, or at least what you think is you. Incidentally, I think the piece of paper analogy is also a perfect way to demonstrate how the one manifests as infinite experiences of individuality. If we look at the base, once again, as an individual piece of paper, if we look at the base or the actual piece of paper as the supreme source, as the singular, as the only thing there is, then to illustrate the path of the paper itself, we would crumple the paper into a ball, creating, and why are we crumpling into a ball? Because it's invaginating on itself from the power of attraction to itself. So if you do that infinitely, just crumpling itself, all right, all right. So if we were to illustrate the path of the paper itself, we would crumple the paper into a ball, creating a complex and seemingly infinite arrangement of wrinkles. Each of these wrinkles would represent infinite variations of the folding process, thereby producing infinite variations of fruit. And that's what the Buddhists refer to as the myriad things, the 10,000 things, the infinite things. You would be one possible configuration of a specific way of the way your particular paper ball is wrinkled. And I would be another specific configuration depending upon my specific fold. Your friends and neighbors are just other examples of the infinite possible ways the singular piece of paper could be wrinkled up into a ball. I imagine that even blades of grass or microorganisms are examples of more simple wrinkles of the very same piece of paper. All right, now I'm going to take a break. Any questions, anybody? You got that brilliantly? All right, very good. And I see some, oh, hold on one second here. Let me pull this up so I could record this. Okay. All right, very good. So everybody did get that, right? Right? Good, good, good. All right. So now we're going to move on to the doing. Now we're moving on to the doing aspect. Oh, I think someone's got their microphone on. Sandra, you got your microphone on. It's all right. All right. So if the main point of the last chapter was that this is it, then the main point of this chapter is that everything in and of this world takes on the qualities of the original dynamic. And now we're going to get to the fun part that I teased upon in the last time. All right, so let me read that sentence again. All right. If the main point of the last chapter was that this is it, then the main point of this chapter is that everything in and of this world takes on the very same qualities of the original dynamic, of which our world is a reflection of. And once again, the original dynamic is the eternal act of aware space contracting within itself from the sheer power of the magnetic attraction to itself. And the original pulse, that's what that is. That's the original pulse. Everything in the universe is a pulse, vibrations, a pulse, our heartbeats, the pulse, galaxies, star, everything is just the cycle of day and night, the cycle of incarnation versus discarnate phase. Everything is a pulse, or we could look at it as the wave, the waveform. All right, in the original pulse, or the causeless cause, is this tension that's caused from awareness being attracted to itself. Since the pulse that this tension creates is nothing other than aware space contracting within itself to form a vortex of experience, i.e. the individual. That's what you are. Everyone is their own individual black hole. Everyone is their own individual world. There's not one world we're all looking at. You are your world. That's it. You're the creator, sustainer, and destroyer and experiencer of your own world, or a vortex of experience. Aware space contracting within itself to form a vortex of experience, and that's basically this. What I had in my first book. The first one is just aware space, and then the second one is aware space invaginating on itself due to the power of attraction itself, and the third one is the world of experience. That's it. Your whole world is just aware space forming a loop, and you're looking at just the three-dimensional hologram that's appearing. Everything in the world is just that, just the three-dimensional hologram appearing. And that's what I mean by a vortex of experience. Will naturally and unavoidably mirror that which parented it, which is the pulsation of aware space. And that's why in this world, everything, first of all, that's why the scientists call it space, time, and matter, because that represents aware space. This is why when we examine this emergent biological life at its most fundamental level, we only find the same pulsation that created it in the first place. And this is why we got fractals. This is why everything's fractals. This is why everything's mirrors. This is why everything's just a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of the reflection. Just a mirror infinitely folding upon itself. Whether it be the opening and closing of our heartbeat or the rising and falling of our brain waves, every biological process that sustains or balances our lives is a mirror image of the original pulse. And that original pulse or vortex of experience is our individuated life. Even when scientists measure or otherwise study electricity itself, they reveal an oscillating or a pulsating vibration, much like the classic Om that mystics find to be the original pulse. In fact, light itself is the product of the same oscillating principle. But for me, the coolest part about this relationship between a waveform and the pulse that emerges from the waveform's potential, is that it perfectly mirrors the original dynamic of the singular manifesting as individuality. And what I mean by that is you have aware space. So in this world, awareness is experienced as the individual, and space is experienced as the world. So what you experience is just you in the world is just a mirror of just aware space. That's the original blueprint. Aware translates to an I in limited form, and space translates to a world in limited form. That's all it is. It's just a mirror image of the original blueprint. But it's its opposite. The opposite of unbounded awareness would be a limited individual. The opposite of unbounded space would be our limited world. The mirror image. All right. What I mean by that is that if you start with a singular waveform, that is flatlined. This would represent the base, which is the undifferentiated awareness. This is what people were referring to as when they think of God or just potential. The path would be the contraction of the waveform that represents undifferentiated awareness, God, or potential. And the fruit of this contraction would be the emergence of the waveform that rose from the pure potentiality of the flat line. So basically what you have is the potentiality of the flat line, then you have the path, which is the contraction, and the result is the waveform itself, is the fruit. So you have the path, the action, and the result is the waveform, which is the wave, which rose from the pure potentiality of the flat line. So basically, the waveform is just the actualized version of the potential of the flat line. The original dynamic of contraction consistently and necessarily results in the potential of a flat line to manifest as an emerged waveform, just like the ocean has no choice but to emerge as the waves. The inseparability of the water and the waves, the water and the movement is the waves. Or just as I outlined, this contraction similarly results in the pulsation of undifferentiated awareness, manifesting as individualized consciousness, God manifesting as the world, or potential manifesting as emergence. So while the flat line itself is an undifferentiated singularity, through the process of contraction, through self-attraction, it magically transforms itself into the vast and complex infinite variety of appearances that we have come to call our universe. And the reason you say that is because all the universe starts out as just one oscillation. From those many oscillations, you have vibrations and frequencies. From frequencies, you have form, color, shape, world, the infinite complexity that the Buddhists call the myriad things is an infinite expression of just that original tension, just those two movements. It's basically, the analogy I like to give is think about what infinite creations we could do with either the combination of black and white dots on a color TV and creating all the infinite pictures that you could have with, Dick Van Dyke talking to each other and all the different characters. All that's created from just the a combination of black and white. Simple as that. Or computers. Everything you ever see on your computer is just a combination of on or off, binary, everything we see. So we could see that the infinite mirrors the original dynamic. It was just that cycle, just that pulse, on or off, on or off. The reason that the pulsation plays such an important part in all of creation is that it is the simple act that allows the infinite to appear as finite. The flat line itself has no beginning and it has no end, as this represents the infinite. But if you introduce the slightest differentiation of that flat line, which for a line would necessarily be a contraction, then this infinite line would manifest an appearance of a beginning and an ending. And that's what waveforms are. Waveforms are just beginning of a wave and an ending of a wave. But the line itself has no beginning or ending. So basically, this is showing you the relationship, how you could have an apparent beginning or an ending because you apparent having a birth and a death because you're a waveform, but what you truly are is just that line itself. So that's what this really is about, is just getting to know what you actually are, which is the line. And then the line, like I said, that moves and gives the appearance of an individual that has a beginning or an end, but in actuality, you have no beginning or end. The line's constantly there, whether it's in a waveform or whether it's flat. It's always being the line. All right. Did we say this? Yes. But never for a second would we ever mistake the apparent waveform, the emergent property, the world, or individualized consciousness to be anything other than what it actually is, which is the flat line itself, or undifferentiated awareness. And then the beat goes on. Okay. So I have been seeing how everything in life, oh wait, anybody have any questions before I go on to that? To that? No, good. All right, everybody's getting it. I've been seeing how everything in life is just mirroring what I call the original tension, which is awareness being attracted to itself. It's like everything else is just another layer, just another variation on the same theme of that initial nub. The original tension manifests as awareness of awareness, or what we call duality. And then duality, as an emergent property, it creates another layer that we call fear/desire. Fear/desire represents our attraction/repulsion instincts. Then our fear/desire as an emergent property manifests as biologically needing to consummate with some life forms and then consuming other life forms while avoiding being consumed by them first. So basically, the situation we find ourselves in is all we are is life forms, and we're driven to just consume other life forms, which means killing and eating, or avoiding being consumed by other life forms, which means avoid being eaten by other life forms. And that's a dual need. So one, we're trying to kill, we're trying to consume life, but also we're trying to consummate. We're trying to produce life. So we have this dual instinct where one, we're trying to consummate. So basically, we look at the world where everybody is either good for two good things. You're either good for consummating or consuming. And that's it. After that, the layers just keep getting increasingly more complex, ultimately taking shape as our world's cultures, our politics, our religion, our economics, etc., all the way down to the details of our personal story. And that's why I'm saying I could care less about the world with the state it's in and everything, because all it is just a mirror of the original tension. Everything that we're seeing has just been happening for billions of years, eons of years, a state of building, destroying, sustaining, coming back potential, arising again, creating, destroying. What's really going on underneath of all the activity, everything you see on the news, everything is something beautiful. It's just nature happening underneath of an active tension. And we're witnessing that tension, and we're witnessing probably the rarest time of that tension, the time where the tension is actually going from change, from transformation. So after that, the layers just keep getting increasingly more complex until taking shape as our world's cultures, our politics, religion, economics, etc. All of that, everything we see is just the result of an infinite complexity of that dynamic, just mirroring on itself, getting infinitely complex. And that's all religion is, our politics, our culture, economics, everything is just that original fold, just infinitely folding on itself. All right, so I use this term original dynamic as an alternative to creation stories, because basically that was my thing, is explain all this. My whole thing is, where did this come from? We're looking at the world appears, where did it come from? And if you say it's an illusion, explain that then. Explain the appearance of the world. You know, at some point, it's got to be accounted for. We have to account for the appearance of the world. So I use the term, and the reason I use the term, I don't know if I'm going to say this, so I may repeat myself, but the reason is because so I knew creation was a joke because creation related on time. And the reason people have a hard time with creation is because they're looking for a first cause, because they're thinking about in time. But in reality, there is no first cause. There is no such thing as creation. There just is, and there's transformation. But anyway, I'm about to explain it. So I use the term original dynamic as an alternative to creation stories such as the Big Bang or Genesis. The reason I call it the original dynamic is because the term refers to the actual source of this miraculous and spontaneous arising of appearances. In Buddhism, they call it self-origination, just self-arising. The reason I call it the original dynamic is because the term refers to the actual source of this miraculous and spontaneous arising of appearances, while doing so in the present tense. Creation stories never made sense for me due to the inherently temporal nature of any creation story. But the original dynamic is not a mere sequence of events, even though it is mirrored in this dualistic world of sequential events. In other words, I recognize in this world, everything that we talk about has to be spoken about in sequential events, but underneath, it's not. Like I said, it's the inseparability of aware space that makes time, space, matter appear. So once time, space, matter appears, yes, now everything happens sequentially, but what we're talking about is the actual reality underneath that. All right, but the original dynamic itself is outside of time, as it simply refers to the inherent inseparability of aware space, manifesting as the dualistic world in which we are able to measure space and time. And it is by observing the natural laws that govern this dualistic world that we discover how the original dynamic mirrors itself in every aspect of the dualistic world's natural order. From the activity of procreation to the power of magnetic attraction, to the transformation of all creation, we witness how this pattern plays itself out, endlessly evolving while simultaneously maintaining its original dynamic. We are all witnessing the actual Big Bang and Genesis story all wrapped up in one, and it is still happening on every level of existence. And what I mean by that, that's before what I meant about the virgin birth. That's what we're watching. We're watching the original virgin birth, just immaculate conception, self-arising origination. We are all witnessing the actual Big Bang and the Genesis story all wrapped up in one, and is still happening at this very moment on every level of existence. I want to end this particular thought with an outline of how the original dynamic mirrors itself in the very world that it manifests as. And the way I do that is I state that the base path and the fruit for the original dynamic is space-aware duality. And then the duality that it created, it mirrors the original thing by its base is space, its path is time, and its fruit is matter. So I'm going to put that up here and show you what I mean by that. So basically the original dynamic is space aware, the inseparability of space and awareness manifesting as duality. In that duality, what we define duality is the inseparability of space, time, and matter. And I'm about to get into that in a whole, if anybody watched my podcast before that, I get into how the relationship between space, time, and matter actually mirrors the relationship between the original dynamic, but I don't want to get into that now. I just want to finish because I feel like I'm wrapping up, and I know I don't want to go too long. I said I want to go longer than an hour, so all right. I'm just going to finish at the next logical paragraph. This will probably be the last one. All right. So let us does anybody have any questions up to that point about that? Oh, go ahead, Art. Yes. What's your question?
Mark,
hey, thanks.
I appreciate you going over that. There's something that I might have a stuck point with in my own understanding is I just am gleaning from what you're saying. There's not intentionality around this original dynamic. It just spontaneously self-arises from the tension, not with purpose or meaning. And the meaning is given in the duality.
We give the meaning, we create the meaning. We're creating meaning, and that's important. I do not look down on meaning. Meaning is important. We are the fruit, like love. Love doesn't also exist. We generate love. We generate meaning. These things are important. We are the generators of them. So yes, they're very important, but they're not intrinsically there. They're emergent properties. Meaning is an emergent property. Love is an emergent property. They're just as valid. They're just as important. All three are just as important, but they each have their place. They each have their, like I said, base path or fruit.
And they also have a base path and fruit is where I was going to go next, right? So in essence, they're just replicating the original disturbance
Dynamic.
process.
Yes.
Yeah, that original dynamic. They're replicating that in the duality component, and their subsequent replications, like you say, fractalize, and it goes forever.
Forever.
Without intentionality.
Without intentionality, and we're doing it. We're a product, and what you call I'm gonna in my book, in the third book, I conclude with what you're saying. The way we're replicating it is, think about this. This is what I'm saying, but tell me if I'm wrong. All we see is life, learning, love. That's it. Everything that we see is life. What is it doing? Learning. Whether it's the trees, whether it's the water, whether it's the atoms, whether it's stars, we're all learning. Everything is life. The stars, the trees, me, you, everything is life. That's what we are. What do? We're all learning. Everything is learning. And what is the fruit? Love. And now, of course, we have to get more poetic if we talk about magnets and gravity learning, but you get my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one last question before you go on to the next topic and close up. The suicide mission you're talking about is also a replicated process for the depletion of a spontaneous horizon.
Yes. And that's why, and the way I said it, it's the way I came, the reason I called it a suicide mission is because I realized it's inevitable. All of us are ending up there. And that's why I say enlightenment is not important. We're all ending up there. The path, you're being whittled down. That G is meant to show you how we're all being whittled down to enlightenment. We're all getting down the drain. We're all going down the drain, and the drain is the singularity at the bottom. That's the singularity. That's what we call enlightenment. That's nirvana. That's God. That's the whole thing you want. And the more up top is the more duality, the more myriad things. But we're all evolved. And this is evolution. We're all getting slide down. Every decision, you get less and less choices. Because of that, your choices get less and less. And we're all going this way. With each decision, we're learning. And by your learning, it's gravity. We're being sucked down the drain by our learning. By our learning, you're getting burned. Don't do that again. You get burned. Don't do that again. You get burned, and we learn. And this is where life is taking us. And what I call the suicide mission is doing that consciously. We're all going there unconsciously. The most ignorant person in the world, we're all following the same path. What I call the suicide mission is just consciously knowing what you're doing and consciously put your head down the drain and kill yourself because you want to, because you like the direct, because you trust in the direction. You trust in the direction that it's going. You're like, oh, I get it. I'm sick of fucking struggling with the water and just drown. Just let myself get submerged into the water. I'm sick of all the surrendering. I'm sick of all the struggling. I could trust the water. For life, I've thought the water is a problem, and I've been convinced the water's a problem and drowning was a problem, and I just have to surrender to the water. And bam, you find out the water was life itself. And that's the whole joke. And which, by the way, I'm kind of stealing from a Zen quote where they said, don't be afraid of the void. What you think of the void is, all the qualities of a void, terror, the end of everything. When you surrender to the void, you're going to find out that there is no such thing as void. It's actually the Dharma. And once again, we go to that door when I said it's death on one side, it's birth on the other. It looks like death to us on the suicide mission. But what we call death is actually on the other side of it is just birth. It's life. It's the beginning.
And even that suicide mission doesn't have intentionality. It wouldn't be us. It would be the invagination.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And that's why I'm said enlightenment, you can't even do it. It has to be something where something clicks like an insight, like, oh, I get it. Now I'm intentionally going to do it. And you're right. Even that you can't help. Yes, it's always going to come back to, I like what you're pointing at, Art. You're going to say no matter what, there's never a choice. Even if you say, aha, I made a choice, I'm going to commit and I'm never going to, you couldn't help it. is what Art's pointing out. And he's absolutely right. We're being guided. We're being guided. You're absolutely right, Art. I love it. Thank
And
you.
we're being guided by them 3 questions by Norbu, which are lead us to trust, act, and then surrender, or insight, trust, act, surrender type thing.
Wow. You just said Norbu. So you're familiar with Dzogchen?
Uh-huh.
Ah, you're cheating. Oh, very good. Okay. You probably know more than I do because I know,
No.
I only know Dzogchen very superficiality. I love it. And I talk about it, but I said on another podcast, I probably only read an accumulative 100 words of it, but it speaks to me so deeply. So I appreciate that. So now that I know that, repeat that about the insight,
Well, I think it's in the cycle of
day and night. Yeah.
day and night. The 3 sentences were, we have an insight, we trust that insight, act upon that, and then we surrender into that insight, and then another insight, and it's just perpetual.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's beautiful. Yep. And we're living out that. And that's why I was saying that original triune, it's not just talking about the origination of reality, the birth of the universe. It's actually talking about everything. Like you just said, every moment of our life, the way trees grow, the way conversations go, the way weather goes, the way politics go, the way everything has no choice but to follow that basic template because of its mirroring what it actually is.
It's beautiful. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. It's beautiful. I mean, that's the whole thing. The beauty's there to be recognized. And that's what we have to be grateful for, is just recognizing that beauty. So look, we're at the hour mark. So while we're on that note, I'm not going to continue to read. I'm going to save that for next time. So I'm going to have that nicely ending there. But if anybody now wants to ask questions that are irrelevant, you can, and then that way I'll be able to separate this from that. So yeah, first of all, so thanks everybody. I appreciate that. Like I said, I'm only going to be able to do this like once a month for a while, just because, you know, everybody's going to be busy. But so yeah, so if anybody has now questions about anything else, even not relating to this, you can. Otherwise, I'll let everybody get on to their Sundays. That's it. All right, everybody, I appreciate that. Thank you again. And I'll let you know when the next one is. Watch your emails. But thanks again for attending. I really appreciate that. I had a lot of fun and very informative. And I'm sure it'll be good for all of us. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one. All right, bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.